Welcome to episode 26 of the Ask the Law Firm Seller Show. My name is Jeremy Poock, and I lead Senior Attorney Match. In today's Ask Show, we'll have two segments: our Q&A segment and our Pook's Post. As a preview for today's Pook's Post, we'll address whether we have reached a tipping point between digital marketing outpacing a law firm's book of business. So let's jump right into it with our first question. So our first question today is, how long does it take to sell a law firm? When it comes to the length of time that it typically takes to sell a law firm, what we see in the marketplace is that generally the time frame is somewhere between 3 to 9 months, really closer to 6 to 9 months. Can be longer than 9 months in certain situations, but that's certainly what we're seeing in the marketplace. Before a law firm, let's say, goes to market, you're ready to start marketing the law firm for sale or for merger or some form of other strategic alliance with what we find is a growing law firm as the purchaser. Lawyers and law firms that are considering selling their firms need to be thinking about four particular items, four categories of what to organize before going to sell the law firm. And those four categories of items to organize are as follows. First and foremost is your book of business. That is the primary asset in any law firm sale. Any purchaser of a law firm, a growing law firm that is going to be purchasing the practice, or an internal sale to internal lawyers at your firm, the first question is going to be is, tell us about the book of business. How many clients do you have? What are their phone numbers? What are their email addresses? What are their addresses? What types of services did you provide to your clients when you've represented them in the past? So for anyone considering selling their law firm, let's say in the next 12 to 24 months, critically important to get your arms around your book of business and organizing that book of business. The second item to organize is your website, because any purchaser, and now let's focus on outside purchasers, right? That growing law firm that is interested in growth by acquisition, what and where are they going to look at first when they are interested in your firm? They're going to look first and foremost at your website. They want to read your bio. They want to read the bios for attorneys at your firms. Whether you list bios for para staff, they are going to absolutely peruse your website. So whether that means updating your website, sometimes we've even recommended to clients to republish it. Republishing a website doesn't mean that you have to have the world's greatest website, but similar to, let's say, if you're going to sell your house and you need to put a fresh coat of paint, on your home, sometimes republishing the website is worthwhile to do because it is the first stop of any buyer. So that means updating content on the website, updating pictures on the website, significantly removing old content, right? If you wrote an article back in 2005, that was a great article then, but we're now in the mid 2020s. So query whether you should remove, and actually we do recommend removing stale content from the website as well. We want people, just like if they're coming into your home for sale, they want to smell that it's fresh. They want to see fresh paint. They want to see new appliances. They want to know that this is a home that would be exciting for them to purchase. Similarly, the website is the first entree point typically for a growing firm, an interested firm to be purchasing your practice. The importance of updating the website. When you're updating the website, also please, as a sort of bonus points, it's hard to do, but it's worth the investment, is reaching out to your clients and requesting 5-star Google reviews. Any buyer, when they go to your website, they want to see more and more, expect to see multiple 5-star Google reviews. And so do prospective clients. So it's really a 2-for-1. As you're preparing to sell your law firm and you're updating the website, please start requesting or hire a company to help you request 5-star Google reviews from your clients. They want to let the world know that you're a great lawyer. You have and run a great law firm. They just need to be asked and be presented with the opportunity. And those 5-star Google reviews provide that all important social proof that this is a This is an excellent law firm for a growing law firm to consider to purchase. Next, in terms of an item to be organizing in advance of selling your law firm, is bettering, improving, maybe even introducing a presence on social media. That does not mean you need to become an influencer. It doesn't. But when people are going to be looking online and checking out a selling law firm's digital presence, after the website, they're going to review your LinkedIn profile. They want to see whether you have posts to social media. But let's focus on LinkedIn, because what we're absolutely seeing in the marketplace is that growing law firms, when they're interested to purchase a firm, they're going to check out the bios for all of the attorneys on LinkedIn. So important to update your biographical information, update your pictures, and also start adding content to LinkedIn. And in addition, please take the time. It doesn't take much time, but connect with at least 500 people. It sounds like a daunting number. It's really not. That's like connecting with 10 people, 20 people a day by just clicking on connect with, and these are colleagues of yours, clients of yours, other networking associates, of yours, to get up to that 500 number, so that people see that yes, you are active in the general community, in the legal community, in the business community of where your law firm is based. Ideally, we recommend start working with a social media company. It's really not that hard. You can be doing posts. They don't need to be daily posts, but getting posts, onto LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, X. And this is all coming from the content, the subject matter knowledge that so many senior attorneys have. Take that content, the five best the 10 worst the three things you need to know about These are often just top of mind for lawyers, senior attorney owners of firms, and lawyers at their firms, and to start publishing that to social media, so that when a buyer wants to see where are you from a social media standpoint, you have a presence better than, let's say, a LinkedIn profile that has a picture of you from 10 years ago, or worse, has no picture of you, has a minimal bio, and you have two connections between, let's say, you and your spouse. All right, the fourth of the four categories of what to organize in advance of selling your law firm are contract related. These are just logistical items. I wouldn't say dust off, but certainly have front and center in front of you, because growing firms are going to be interested to know, what are the terms of your office lease? What other contracts do you have that are more than terminable at will? So those include your legal research, your malpractice insurance, of course, your copy machine lease, your telephone contract that you have for your website. For firms that still send out mail regularly, like, do you still have a postage machine? Do you have offsite storage? What's the contract information for that? So just getting your arms around and organizing all of your contracts that are more than 30-day terminable at will type contracts. So now you're organized, you're ready to go to market. And what we find is that when lawyers and law firms are going to sell their practices, it takes 6 meetings for for a law firm to sell its practice. So when lawyers are considering selling their law firms, it typically takes 6 meetings to sell the practice. And time frame wise, what we find is that takes somewhere between 3 to 9 months, give or take. In terms of those 6 meetings needed to sell a law practice, we're going to break them up into two categories of three each. Hopefully that made sense. So in the first category of three, what we find is the first step in terms of selling your law firm is what we call a meet and greet. That is, you've identified a law firm that is interested to purchase your firm. What we find in the marketplace consistently is that growing law firms that practice in similar practice areas, and often similar geographic areas as a selling firm, that is your prototypical best potential purchaser for your practice. So let's say we've identified a number of growing law firms that match the practice areas in the geographic area where your practice is based. First step in the 6 meetings needed to sell a law practice is a meet and greet. Incredibly important, right? We need to find out, during the meet and greet, often that is in person, can be over Zoom, but we really recommend it be in person, is can we hit it off with these folks? What is the firm culture on both sides of the coin? Selling law firm, purchasing law firm? Do we approach clients the same way? Do we approach how we practice the same? How we practice the same way? What do we think of this judge and that referral source, and where have we crossed paths before? And just making sure that on a cultural basis, that the two firms culturally align. Because what we find is that even if firms are on paper the right matches, okay, and I'll put right in quotes here, culture we find is king and queen when it comes to whether a match will actually work. Because if you don't like the lawyers at the firm and you don't respect the lawyers at the firm that you could potentially join, whether you are a good match on paper goes out the window. And in the meet and greet, you really start getting a sense of whether these two firms could work well together. Here's a caution. Just put up an orange caution card on the meet and greet, is to beware of what we call puppy love, right? Just like when you were dating as a teenager, right? You think that you found the one. It doesn't have to be teenager, it could be young adult, but teenage certainly comes to mind. And you have this puppy love with a person that you think is Mr. or Ms. Right. But all of your friends and your brother and your sister and your parents all say, you know what, Mr. or Ms. Right is not Mr. or Ms. Right for you, right? You may think they are, but we know you. We know that person. It's just not the right fit. So we caution people in the meet and greet is that for as much as you may want a match to be working, to just have your ears perked up, your eyes wide open, and to try to avoid puppy love. Okay, beyond the meet and greet, second meeting is due diligence. Okay, we think that this could be an interesting match, right? We match up well on practice areas, we match up culturally. Now let's start exchanging financial documents. Okay, let's find out, where's the money coming in from the senior attorney side? Excuse me. What are the practice areas where senior attorney focuses on? The growing law firm, what type of practice areas do they focus on? Where do the dollars come in from their practices? And does the growing law firm, do they have the necessary depth? We're often saying that from a senior attorney seller standpoint, we want to match a senior attorney firm with a firm that has a proverbial deep bench. They have lawyers and para staff at their firm that have been there, done that. They, from day one, can represent your clients capably, competently, zealously. Okay. And then also look into additional areas of due diligence, right? Let's make sure there's no potential malpractice claims, as an example. Let's make sure that there's no conflict of interest. Let's find out, does the growing firm have debt? If the selling firm has a long-term lease, okay, they have multiple years left on their lease, is the growing firm going to have an appetite to acquire, succeed to that lease? All of that information is digested, for lack of a better word, during the due diligence period. Time frame wise, due diligence can often take somewhere between 4 to 8 weeks. Okay, as due diligence is progressing, then we get to our third meeting. And our third meeting, this is really metaphorical at this point, but our third meeting is negotiating a letter of intent, right? The parties want to work together. We've gone through due diligence. Let's start negotiating the terms, okay? What is the growing law firm going to offer to the selling law firm, to the owner or owners of that law firm? How long will the growing law firm want senior attorney seller or sellers to continue to practice? Could those terms work for both sides? And here is where deals make it or break it. Okay, because when you're negotiating the terms of the letter of intent, sometimes parties are either just too far apart, or when they start negotiating, of course, you really get to start knowing the other side, right? And even though you might have really liked such and such lawyers from the growing law firm side, or the growing law firm really liked the senior attorney at the meet and greet and during due diligence, during that negotiation of the letter of intent, certain things could come up, red flags come up, in addition to the negotiations of the terms themselves. So that's really the first 3 meetings out of the 6 that are critical towards the 6 meetings to sell your law firm. Go through the meet and greet, due diligence, and whether a deal will get to a signed letter of intent or not. Let's say it does, okay? And time frame wise, that would have taken from meet and greet to signing the letter of intent, literally sometimes between 3 to 4 months. Once the letter of intent is signed, then it's not so much clear sailing, but it's really what we call we're in the green zone at this point, or maybe football terms, red zone, that is from 20-yard line to get into the end zone, because we're taking the terms from the letter of intent and putting that into an agreement itself, right? We're signing the letter of intent, then we're negotiating an agreement, but by and large, all of the deal terms were in the letter of intent. And negotiating an agreement, we're adding primarily boilerplate type terms. Yes, deals could fall apart after the letter of intent, but by and large, getting back to that football analogy of we're in the red zone, okay, we are negotiating what we call a definitive agreement, signing that definitive agreement, and then signing the agreement. So in terms of the time frame from signing a letter of intent to a closing, what we find is, or let's go back up a second, from signing a letter of intent to signing what we call a definitive agreement, that can sometimes take as little as a month. And then after the definitive agreement is signed, then we find a closing date or a commencement date for when the sale, when the sale actually happens, when lawyers are joining, let's say senior attorney and additional lawyers and staff are joining a growing law firm, from signing the definitive agreement to commencement date. That also can take only about a month or so, because we want to make sure that we're getting announcements out, that we are sending out new engagement letters, we're transferring over IOLTA escrow type funds and whatnot. So again, the 6 meetings to sell a law practice, what we find total time frame somewhere between 3 to 9 months. It can be longer if we're negotiating a letter of intent with a particular firm and that deal unfortunately could crash and it doesn't work. Then we've got to start all over again with another firm, or continue with firms that had initially expressed interest, and go through that meet and greet, due diligence, letter of intent, sign the letter of intent, negotiate the agreement, and then sign the agreement. Okay, so now we have signed the agreement. Once a senior attorney has sold or merged their practice with a growing law firm, you've signed the agreement, then the question is, all right, well, how much time does it take for us to get from signing an agreement to, let's measure this by knowing that it's a successful deal, okay? Because by and large, what we're seeing is that when law firms are sold, what we regularly see in what we call law firm sales 1.0 is that the consideration terms, the financial terms of those sales, are often earnouts, right? We're not seeing significant money paid upfront at closings when the primary asset is the goodwill of a selling law firm, and that goodwill, the primary asset of the goodwill, is the book of business. So when law firms are sold and you've signed an agreement, you have joined, that is senior attorney and additional attorneys have joined a growing law firm, and the selling attorney typically joins for months, sometimes several years. Often they want to do that, right? They enjoy practicing law, but very importantly, as this earnout period is being paid out, that is, the financial terms in that agreement call for fee sharing by growing purchasing firm with selling senior attorney, a percentage of revenues coming from the defined book of business of the selling firm. Long-winded way of me saying senior attorney is staying on with the growing law firm to transfer the trust of clients to the lawyers at the growing law firm. So what are the steps needed to achieve success once the agreement is signed and the two firms are coming together? What we find there is there's really 4 steps to achieve success. The first step, very important, is a listening tour. That is when senior attorney and additional attorneys, let's focus on the attorneys, although the power staff is very important too. So when they join a growing law firm, it's like going to a new high school. It's like transferring from a school that you're very comfortable with. Let's just say you went through freshman, sophomore, junior year, and now you transfer in your senior year to a totally new high school. Both sides really need to listen to each other, because each side knows this is how that's how we do it here. No, this is how we do it here. How are we going to do it together? So it's very important. Listening tour, that's important in the first, let's call it 30 days. The next 2 steps towards achieving success for law firm sales from the get-go is what we call adapt and adopt. Both sides are going to need to adapt to each other. They have different billing practices. They have different intake practices. They have different types of approaches to, let's say, discovery if it's a litigation firm, or how they draft documents if, let's say, it's a trust and estates firm. And what we find where parties can be less successful is when the growing law firm, the owner of a growing law firm, managing partner, takes out proverbially a badge that says, hey, I'm the new sheriff here. This is how we do it here. Okay. Family Feud style. We just say to that, because it just conjures up, just really disrespect from the senior attorney led firm. Like, hey, we've been doing it our way for so many years. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why are you telling me, how I must, and how our staff that just joined your firm, how we must do it? Course, that managing partner or office manager of the firm says, hey, look, you're with us now. This is how we do it. So important to adapt to each other. How can you compromise? The goal is to transition the clients and referral sources of the senior attorney led firm to the growing law firm, so the senior attorney seller can benefit from the financial collections of revenues that are coming in from that book of business. Well, if you're spending so much time and energy being pissed off at each other because there's a lack of adaptation to the two different ways these firms have practiced, they're going to get stuck in the mud, and the deal is not going to be as successful as it was projected to be. So that second step towards achieving success, so important to adapt to each other. Once you adapt, then you can adopt. And this can be totally new practices. This can be saying, okay, I am going to adopt your way. Your way is better than our way. And that's on both sides. The growing firm could say to the senior attorney led firm, you know what? You're teaching us. That is a better way to do that. Just a quick example. I have a client right now, and that client has a great intake process. When they're intaking clients, they charge a consultation fee. It's $450. The buying firm, they've never done that. They've never charged a consultation fee, and they probably don't offer sufficient services during their intake process. And the selling law firm, in addition to the $450, by charging for it, they have the time to find out what does the client really need. It's a flat fee type service. So when you spend more time, you can actually find, oh, the client needs this, that, this called A, B, C, D, E, and F. Oh, as a result, your matter is a flat fee of $10,000, let's say, as compared to buyer, right? They spend limited time on an intake call, and they'll give a flat fee of like $3,000. Great way for buyer to adopt a practice of the selling senior attorney led firm during that adoption phase. So after they adapt and adopt, then they start growing together. Right now, we're on the same page. Now we're not pissed off at each other that we weren't listening to each other. We listen to each other. We learn from each other. Very importantly, we now trust each other. And when senior attorneys can really trust the lawyers at the growing law firm that they join, guess what's going to happen? They're going to start transferring the trust of their clients to the lawyers at the law firm that they've joined, because they're able to say to their long-term clients, I really trust these people. They know what they're doing. They do it well. I'm available by phone, by email, by text. But you are in great hands with Deborah, because Deborah's been doing this area of practice for 20 plus years. She's great. Now the client, let's say, works with Deborah. Senior attorney just got a percentage of the revenues from Deborah's billings during the negotiated time period for when that earnout occurs. So now, in terms of how do we know that the deal is successful? We started way back, okay, with a meet and greet and went through due diligence and signed an agreement. We know that we have success, and this is what we see with our clients when our clients will say, I should have done this earlier. Okay, so for our next question is, why do growing law firms want to purchase senior attorney-led firms? Okay, so thanks for that question. In terms of why growing law firms want to purchase senior attorney-led firms, it's because senior attorney-led firms offer 4 upgrades to growing law firms. And I think of this question as a fun question, because, like, who doesn't want an upgrade? I was on an airplane once, and I was just sitting there in coach, right? And a stewardess came down, and the guy a row next to me, she said, "You know what? You qualify for an upgrade today." Wasn't me, right? The guy next to me, and like boom, he went up to business class. I mean, like that guy's smile across his face was beaming, right? You find out you get an upgrade on your hotel, and your air, your airplane seat, all kinds of upgrades in our life, right? That's exciting. So here, when it comes to growing law firms, how can they benefit, become excited by upgrading their firms by acquiring senior attorney led firms? And here are the four upgrades that they experience. First and foremost is they're upgrading their client list. Growth by acquisition involves the book of business that a senior attorney led firm has developed over the course of a career, instantly migrating, transitioning over to a growing law firm. What a huge upgrade that offers to a growing law firm that is out hustling all the time to build up their client base in the sweep, or really the stroke of a pen, or we're in the DocuSign world today. Okay, hitting enter. When you're DocuSigning an agreement, but when that agreement is signed and growth by acquisition happens, the instant upgrade for a growing law firm is you are improving, you are increasing the size of your book of business. Second upgrade is you are upgrading the workforce of your practice. What we are regularly seeing is that when law firm sales happen, the growing law firms are welcoming in experienced lawyers and non-lawyer staff. That is also an immediate upgrade to the talent pool of the lawyers that your growing law firm can now offer to the clients of the senior attorney led firm, as well as the clients of the growing law firm. The next upgrade is a subject matter knowledge upgrade, right? That is, senior attorneys and the lawyers of their firm, they have often focused in, specialized in a limited number of practice areas, which often match. It is what we recommend when you're growing and doing growth by acquisition. We recommend stay in your lane to be purchasing like kind practices. So you are upgrading from a subject matter knowledge standpoint, because by bringing in senior attorney lawyers and the lawyers that practice at their firms, they have often decades of subject matter knowledge that is going to make your practice more valuable by offering even more talent to your current clients and prospective clients. And the final upgrade is a digital value upgrade, right? In today's marketplace, clients, prospective clients, are looking online for their lawyers. They want to know that when they are searching the websites and they are searching social media profiles for lawyers and law firms, they want to see talent. They want to know, like, and trust lawyers and law firms before contacting them. And when growing law firms purchase senior attorney led firms, they are able to upgrade their websites. That is, growing law firm is capable to upgrade their website by adding the bios of senior attorneys and additional attorneys that join the firms. They're able to add digital reviews. That is, senior attorneys already have five-star Google reviews. They also have that book of business, which now growing law firms can reach out to clients from that client list, ask for five-star Google reviews. Huge, because of the need today for growing law firms to offer that social proof that we are a valid law firm, we are authoritative in the marketplace, and that authority, it derives in large part today from the social proof provided by multiple five-star Google reviews, which the book of business that senior attorney-led firms provide. And the final upgrade when it comes to digital value is to offer social media content, right? That is, that growing law firms today recognize the need to be publishing digital content on a regular basis to multiple channels of social platforms. And when senior attorneys and additional lawyers join growing law firms, they're upgrading their ability to publish more digital content, because they're able to convert that subject matter knowledge that senior attorneys and the lawyers of their law firms have, to convert that into digital content to publish as LinkedIn posts, as constant contact e-newsletters, as podcasts, as YouTube videos, Instagram posts, and the list goes on and on. And it's a tremendous upgrade to that digital content that growing law firms want and need and can derive from the lawyers from senior attorney led firms when growing law firms grow by acquisition. So, for today's Pook's post is, have we reached the tipping point of digital marketing outpacing a book of business? So let's just ask that again from the Pook's post for today. It's, have we reached a tipping point in terms of digital marketing outpacing the book of business? So let's just share some experiences and observations that I've had over the last, I'll call it really couple of years, because we give a lot of thought to digital marketing in the book of business. We have always said since the very outset of Senior Attorney Match, 2012, 2013, really, that the book of business is your primary asset when it comes to selling your law firm. And it still is. Okay. When you're selling a law firm, what is the energy source for any law firm? What does a growing law firm want and need? They want and need clients. Okay. And that book of business, by and large, over the years for senior attorneys, was built what we call the hard way, via word of mouth, via the goodwill of given attorneys. What we are observing, and I'll just give a couple of examples, is that word of mouth in terms of building the book of business is depreciating. It is minimizing. Really, we call it vanishing, in terms of vanishing rainmaker, um, because of digital marketing. So let's give a couple of examples. The first and foremost example is the blue back of a will. Okay, we work with a number of trust and estates attorneys, and what we always see with trust and estates attorneys with their wills is there's this proverbial, and literally is, a blue back that has the contact information for the scrivener of the will, the lawyer, the law firm that wrote the will. Here's their name, here's their address, here's their phone number. What are we seeing in the marketplace? Is that lawyers that offer trust and estate, probate and trust administrations, are getting calls and contact forms being sent to them by the families of deceased people that are looking to hire a probate and trust administration attorney, rather than calling the phone number on the back of the blue back of that will. In my opinion, that is indicative of the fact that today's clients are just bypassing yesteryear's rainmaker attorneys, even when they have the phone number in front of them, because they want to just search for best, let's call it, probate attorney near me. Second example, we recently did a sale of a law firm where my client has a book of business, but why did the growing law firm want to purchase our practice's firm? It was because of the SEO rankings that our client has in a contiguous state. So the state next to them, they want to expand to that state, and my client ranks in the top 3 for the major search terms for the type of law that they both practice. So unlike the book of business being that, authority for why a purchaser wants to purchase the firm, this was an example of the digital ranking of the selling law firm, which outpaced and really did not play nearly as much of a factor as it has in the past to the buyer's mentality for why the buyer wanted to purchase this firm. Third example is that we have a client that has a total word of mouth practice, and it's a great practice. And we presented the practice to a buyer who was very much in alignment, same practice area, also in culture, right? This is the selling firm has always marketed to a particular culture slash language, so it matches up geographically, matches up culturally, matches up linguistically. The selling firm continues to develop business. It's not like business has gone down. But what did the buyer say? Buyer said, look, we are already digitally marketing into that marketplace. We are already attracting enough clients from that marketplace, and we don't think that purchasing that lawyer's firm is really going to move the needle for us in terms of how we are growing. If that seller had real digital analytic data showing that clients are finding them on Google, or finding them in other areas of digital type searches, that would be valuable to us. But no, we are going to pass on purchasing that firm. So let's look at how it is that today's growing law firms, how are they developing their business in a post 2020 environment. So post 2020, what we are seeing, and we are only going to continue to see, okay, as we head towards 2030, is that new clients are developed by growing law firms in 5 ways. Okay, first and foremost is Google. We regularly say that Uncle Google is America's greatest referral source for lawyers and America's greatest rainmaker, because people go straight to their phones, to their tablets, to their laptops, and they're typing into Google the best fill in the blank attorney near me. As a result, growing law firms spend significantly, as well they should, to attract clients to them when they are searching for lawyers and law firms on Google. Secondly, is social media. Having a social media presence that you're publishing content regularly, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, you're putting out podcasts, you're putting out YouTube videos, because today's and tomorrow's clients, they want to know, like, and trust attorneys and law firms before contacting them, as compared to yesteryear, contacting your uncle, your accountant, another lawyer who you know, and saying, hey, I have a need for such and such a lawyer, and who do you recommend? We proverbially, societally, we bypass that who do you know by asking Google and searching on social media for who's the best attorney to fit my needs in my area. Next is the website. Critically important, okay, that when clients are directed towards a particular lawyer or law firm, well, they're going to go look at your website. They're going to look at your bios. Do you handle the type of the type of legal needs that this prospective client has? And very importantly, from a social proof standpoint, how many 5-star Google reviews does your firm have? Because just like we rely on 5-star Google reviews when we purchase almost anything, whether that is a tangible item or we are investing in purchasing a service, we want to know what others think about that service provider, about that professional. And when growing law firms offer 50, 100, 500, 1,000 plus Google reviews, it's huge. It's social proof for why clients should feel comfortable to retain a law firm even without a word of mouth recommendation. The next is audio and video. Again, potential clients, they want to know, like, and trust attorneys today. So what we're seeing is growing law firms, they are publishing podcasts and videos. Listen to my authority in a given practice area. Watch me speak about the practice area that you, potential client, want to hire an attorney on. Well, I'll share with you in my 2-minute video or my 12-minute podcast about why our law firm meets the needs that you have. And then finally, in terms of how growing law firms post 2020, how they're developing business, yes, it's still old school, handing out business cards, going to networking type meetings, but really so much of the legal industry post 2020 in terms of client development has shifted to multi-channel digital marketing. And what that has led to is digital disruption. So as we're thinking about this tipping point of digital marketing as compared to one's book of business developed old school via word of mouth, we are absolutely putting senior attorneys in particular on notice that digital marketing disruption is here. You experience it, right? Like senior attorneys, we see it all the time. They are experiencing the impact of digital disruption, where more new clients are hiring, retaining those law firms post 2020 that subscribe to multi-channel digital marketing to attract the attention online, because that is where the attention is Okay, they're attracting the attention online of prospective clients to retain their firms, and those growing law firms that invest in multi-channel digital marketing, they are attracting more new clients than yesteryear's attorneys that continue to rely upon word of mouth type marketing to attract clients. Just as a question for anybody that doubts that, is when was the last time that you ordered a set of 500 new business cards for your firm? It just doesn't happen as much as it used to pre 2020 and certainly pre Google. So, what has this led to? This has led to what we call the vanishing rainmaker. Post 2020, what we are seeing is that the rainmaker of yesteryear, and I have such fond memories of those lawyers that worked a room marvelously. Okay, it's like watching somebody, on a Arthur Miller, like dance studio, just like dance around the studio, flawlessly is how rainmakers would work the room. Whether that's a networking meeting, whether that's a community event, just work that room so well so that people knew, oh, yeah, Attorney Jones, I know him, or I know her. She does this. She's great. She's so active in the community. Of course, you want to send all of your real estate matters to Attorney Jones. Well, in the age of the vanishing rainmaker, Attorney Jones is just getting totally bypassed because clients today, as a result of digital disruption, they're not even looking for Attorney Jones because they're just going straight online and asking Google for best fill in the blank attorney near me. So now let's look at what it is that growing law firms, okay, as we're thinking about senior attorneys in particular, and you're considering selling your law firm, what is it that growing law firms, what is it that they want and need to propel and to boost the growth of their law firms? They need three resources to boost their growth. They need new clients, they need an experienced workforce, right? So if you have the clients, you need talent. Senior attorney led firms, absolutely. They offer talent. They have additional lawyers and support staff at their firms. And the third item to boost growth that growing law firms need is digital content. They need more and more digital content to attract the attention of clients that are looking online for lawyers and law firms to hire. So now let's look at when it comes to that tipping point of where we are today between digital marketing, attracting new clients to law firms, as compared to that old school book of business developed as a result of word of mouth type marketing. What we're showing here is that for those senior attorney led firms, and we're focusing on firms that have leadership that has practiced for more than 30 years, if you are not investing in multi-channel digital marketing because clients are looking for lawyers and law firms online today, then your client list and your referral source list, which makes up your book of business, is not going to replenish as much as it did in yesteryear. And as a result, your book of business is not going to replenish as much as it did in the pre 2020, certainly pre Google environment, and your law firm is actually going to become less valuable. So now let's distinguish the legal industry from additional industries that have also gone through digital disruption. So we have all lived through digital disruption since the advent of the internet generally, okay, and Google particularly, and just as the internet just becomes more and more part of our lives. So when it comes to three non-law examples of digital disruption that we think of this in terms of, we're very well familiar with cut and paste, with what I'm now going to share is cut and replace, right? And those three non-law examples are Sears, which was cut and replaced by Amazon; taxi cab medallions, cut and replaced by and large by Uber; and Blockbuster, cut and replaced by Netflix. Now, in terms of the digital disruption in the legal industry, right? Like, we absolutely have digital disruption in the legal industry where the digital disruption is impacting the most valuable aspect of a law firm. Just want to be very clear about that and put senior attorneys in particular on notice about that. Digital disruption is impacting the most valuable aspect of your law firm, which is your client base. And if you are not investing in multiple channels of digital marketing to attract today's clients that are looking online to hire lawyers in law firms, then your law firm is going to attract less clients over time, and your book of business and your overall law practice is going to lose value because word of mouth just has been outpaced by and will continue to be outpaced and digitally disrupted by digital marketing. But and now let's look at that what it is that growing law firms want and need. Unlike the digital disruption in the non-legal area, and we gave examples of Sears and taxi cab medallions and Blockbuster, which involved a cut and replace with regard to Amazon and Uber and Netflix. In the legal industry, for now, digital disruption is absolutely impacting clients. The book of business of senior attorney-led firms will become less valuable. However, it is not a cut and replace at this point. There is an absolute opportunity for what we'll now call cut and paste, because growing law firms, they need your clients. They also need your experienced workforce. They need your lawyers and your support staff to be able to produce the work that the clients are demanding, right? The clients are hiring law firms. They need the talent to be able to do the work. And growing law firms need the digital content that senior attorney led firms can offer. So even though digital disruption is impacting the ability of senior attorney led firms to continue developing the same number of clients as they developed in the past, that does not mean that your law firm is similar to owning a taxi cab medallion that's being replaced by Uber. No, there is a distinction here. However, that distinction is only going to last so long, because growing law firms, they want to be able to take your existing book of business, they can grow it, they can market to your book of business, and the consideration terms and sales typically involves a growing law firm paying a percentage of revenues derived from that book of business. So great, even if your book of business may be diminishing, you can cut and paste yourself, sell, that is, join a growing law firm, bring over the book of business. Growing law firm wants to market to your clients, even if your client list may have gone down already. They will market to that client list, and you will financially benefit as a result. And you also offer two additional value chips, okay, with these resources that growing law firms need to boost their growth, which is you're bringing over talented lawyers and support staff, plus all of the subject matter knowledge that you and the lawyers at your firm have developed over the course of your careers. Growing law firms want and need to convert that subject matter knowledge into digital content to attract the attention of today's and tomorrow's clients. But again, just to emphasize one last time, if your book of business does not continue to regenerate and to attract new clients, your firm over time will become less attractive to growing law firms. So even if your firm is not attracting as many new clients as yesteryear, it is the right time for you to consider selling, because at some point, if your book of business gets to a point where it's just not attractive to a growing law firm, and those growing law firms are attracting clients anyhow because of their digital marketing efforts, then your law firm will become less appealing to growing law firms and could become more like those taxi cab medallions that just unfortunately lost such value when Uber came into the marketplace and disrupted the marketplace in that industry. And that is episode 26 of the Ask the Law Firm Seller Show.